Well, as they used to say on Monty Python, and now for something completely different. For the past several months, I've been posting videos on YouTube and elsewhere in response to our political situation and our situation throughout the world and the dire circumstances under which I see some of our current situation. And I did that in conjunction with reporting on Q and current events and what is going on in the Trump administration, and then filing the petition to end the Federal Reserve, which I consider to be at the very core of our problems. That's the font, the money source, the spring from which our development into a controlled society is being managed. So part of what has propelled me was the recognition that doing so was going to be an important contribution by me, no matter how it turned out, with respect to what it is that I saw I might be able to do as a citizen, as an American, as a human being, to better the world. And while the petition has not worked, I want to share with you, some said, gee, you might be a little bit grumpy about it. No, I'm disappointed. Clearly, I was disappointed. But the object of it was not necessarily to win, and certainly not necessarily to win simply with the petition. I considered the petition a rallying call and hoped that it would function as such. While it has not, it certainly has drawn thousands of people who genuinely put their conscience and their well-being on the line to make sure that they make a statement, as I did, to that process. And philosophically, before I filed it, I knew that the greatest likelihood was that it would not succeed. And I hearkened back to a quote which I will paraphrase from some studies I did of Mahatma Gandhi as he approached trying to take down the British Empire in India. And that was, again, this is a paraphrase, something to the effect, he was asked how it is that he thought a bunch of diapered Indians who were totally unarmed were going to defeat and overturn the British Empire, to which he responded that his duty was not to succeed at it, but to do what it was that he could as an individual to make the change. And of course, as we know, what was it, 1947, the sheer weight and energy of the Indian people caused the British to withdraw, and it is to their great credit that they did so largely in a peaceful and non-combative way, but they did it by overwhelming with millions and millions and millions of Indians who said no. And likewise, I looked at reversing the Fed as just simply a contribution that we can make to overturn that process. And whether it succeeded or failed, it is one more piece in the process. One does not know whether a comment that one of you has made on my videos is what propels a group of people to respond in a way that changes the world. Each one of us is simply a wave splashing on the beach, and none of us knows which one of those waves that are coming up onto the beach are going to cause the cliff to collapse. But sooner or later, it will. And what I see us doing as citizens is each one of us contributing as a wave going onto the beach, doing our part, whether it brings 3 grains of sand or it takes the mountain down. And so I am preparing to move on to a different project and to a different process by which I am not going to be primarily involved. I may from time to time, but I'm not going to be primarily involved with trying to face off with the day-to-day bump and grind of our political situation. And I say that because most of it does not matter. Most of it is triviata. Most of it is sitting in the weeds, describing each weed separately, when in fact we need to get up above it and see why the weeds are growing to begin with. And most of us, I think myself included, most of us have failed to do that for years and years, for decades. And what is more, even with YouTube, even with the mounting cry of the alt membership, the loose and amorphous alt membership on YouTube, we are still in the weeds. People are willing to look at what couple was having sex at an Obama event, as opposed to saying, why did we have Obama there in the first place? And what is more, who was it that propelled Obama to be there, or George W. Bush, or Clinton, or H.W. Bush for that matter, and going back further. So it is, I think, our own failing, and probably it is well managed in seeing us dribbling away in the weeds as opposed to getting up above it and changing things. So let me share with you something which very much helped me in approaching the end of Fed. I know some of you said, well, how is it that you can face this on knowing that somebody might not like you saying what you're saying, or that you are alive doing stuff that you're not supposed to be doing? And there are two pieces to that. One is, which is the easy one, is that I'm 70 years old and I've lived a fairly good life, and if I go down in flames, I'm okay with that. And the second part of it ties into the first. And the second part of it is that my own personal spiritual journey throughout this last 50-odd years has been one that has, by fits and starts, gotten me to a place where I am entirely comfortable with myself as spirit, and not necessarily as the person, the physicality that is present on this video, or that is present as a person. And I say that because I know who the spirit is deeper in the process, and I know that that spirit survives this little old body. Then I can kind of throw the body at the fire, if it takes that, in order to make something happen. And it is in my belief, that my spiritual belief, that processing honestly and decently and with persistence and vigilance a higher cause is much more important than living to be an old age. It is my belief that those people who dove into the rushing water to save a child, even if they lost their own life at a young age, performed a great service and a great duty to themselves and to the people that they helped, and that their spirit was elevated very much as a result of it. And it has, as we obviously must know from the life of Jesus and from many, many others, lives foreshortened are not lost. Spirits that exist in bodies for a short period of time perform at times great service to this country and to this world and to humanity in its entirety, and the fact that they didn't live to old age is of no consequence. So that's the second part of it. So what I intend to do over these coming months is to share with you my own personal journey. And part of it is my own personal journey as it relates to family and the rest of that, but the other has to do with what some of you will consider to be very odd, unlikely, non-scientifically provable events, which I am absolutely certain some of you are going to say the guy is totally off his rocker. and that's okay. That is entirely okay. Again, if my little wave onto the beach elevates, opens, extends, expands anybody else's view of themselves or this world or their spirituality or the presence of the earth in its process, then I will have succeeded, whether the rest of you feel that's true or not. So I am not going to say much more than that now about this process. I am going to begin to put together pieces of what I see as my life and share with you the important and milestone places where I begin to gather my greater understanding of who I am and who we all are, as I see it. Finally, as it relates to End the Fed, the committee as such I have been told, has engaged and said that they would like to proceed. And so what I'm going to do is find a way to hand that End the Fed website over to the lead person in it, as well as a committee of people who will volunteer to process through that. And of course, part of my condition to it is to make sure that people are at some level on the same wavelength. But I'm very much interested if you will send a note to drphrog, that is drphrog, at seethingfrog.com, a note that says, count me in, I'd like to be part of the End the Fed. I know that I got many responses from you in filing that. I have been unresponsive to it, and for that I apologize. But for those of you who are continuing to be interested, please drop another note. I'm going to forward all of that to this other person and attempt to see how we can close in on continuing that process. And while I will continue to be supportive and engaged and perhaps even speak out on it, I'm not going to be the lead person because, frankly, I think that I have a bigger mission, even than the Federal Reserve, which is the one. Having a bigger mission is what made, for me, going after the Federal Reserve a manageable process and project. So I will share with you why I feel that way. Thank you very much for watching. And again, I'm going to put a link at the bottom above your comments. In my notes, I'll put a link to the email address for our website for the Dr. Frog thing, and we'll plan on forwarding that for anyone who wants to be involved, and then I will have to leave the process for itself. So thanks so much, and as Monty Python said, and now for something completely different. My next postings, at least some of them, will be completely different, and I have already had an idea about how I might designate those as from a different source. So we'll see what you think about all that. Thanks again for watching. Give a thumbs up if you like, and I look forward to the dialogue we might have in the coming weeks and months about the new part of the project. Thanks again.